So we're at 117. So read to the public if we are a couple minutes late. We call the policy committee into order. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on unceded and ancestral territories of the moment we've gotten in nations. With that, there is an agenda recommendation.
That the agenda of this meeting be approved.
Melissa, second to that?
Turpin.
April. Any objections? You object?
No, I think she just said Turpin.
No, but you have
To approve.
Maybe she's got a lag.
objection to. Yeah.
Sorry, I was approving.
Lisa, I said any objection? Perfect.
I was approving.
Okay. There's a delay. There's some sort of delay with your feed. It could be here because it looks like there's a delay with April and frozen.
I'm frozen.
We all are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, my camera's not on. Actually, I like your slides.
I can hear you all, no problem. There's no delay
We're just having
on.
some technical.
Sure. Can you hear me okay, Rebecca? I can hear you guys, no problem. There's been no delay at all.
Same for me.
Hey, you were breaking up there with Celeste.
I was just saying
You're back now. Like,
I can hear you all clearly. There's been no delay throughout this whole thing for me, so I can hear everything.
I think it's from this end, and I did acknowledge that you had spoken and you're breaking up. I'm not sure if you're catching that, but it looks like we're all frozen again. Well, we have quorum in the room. So, okay, I'm not sure if you guys can hear us at all, but we're gonna continue.
So let's just. That's frozen, but this isn't.
We'll wait. Okay, I can't see the screen. Okay, so we have the minutes for recommendation then.
That the minutes of the policy committee meeting held on March 12th, 2025 be adopted.
Melissa, 32nd. For April, thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, and that's accepted. Any trustee items? Okay, hearing none. We do not have any presentations. Information items, policy review schedule. That's you.
The schedule is exactly the same last time, so there have been no changes from the last time.
Okay. So we're on track. Yep. Okay. Questions or comments? Hearing none, then we can move on to our discussion items. Let's
Well,
call away, or you able to pick up?
I'm working on that. I'm not sure if you might think to start it. Well, I can walk down. I can't speak to the items.
Can
Unfortunately,
we go to something else? Remember that?
do you have one, Danielle?
It's all Chris.
It's all Chris?
Yeah, so I think we actually did to that, but I'll follow it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down.
Yeah.
He must think we're at
Okay.
12:30.
So just for the public and those online, just so you're aware, Chris has stepped out of the meeting, and so Paul is just trying to find.
Can we
Yeah, I
test
think we
it?
need for Chris to be here too. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my apologies, team. I have a digital calendar that I use for all my notes and everything, and I have 1:45. Policy start.
Oh,
You have 1:45?
I have 1:45. I've got that. I was thinking it was panic.
I was like, I have 1:15. Okay, sorry. You and I both misread it, or changed it from last time, but
Cynthia, but.
anyway, I do apologize. I thought I had time.
That's okay, we're all here now. So Chris, I'll figure it out. Okay, one.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I will just point out that there's a link that is usually in there for the organization in terms of roles and whatnot. And I'm going to be speaking to that in the in-camera because it's staffing. So that's as per normal, but there'll be a follow-up conversation in the in-camera on that piece. Okay, so as per, I didn't catch my breath, I ran.
No.
Give me a second.
Don't take my bike.
Right?
Be faster.
I just turned 55 and I think I'm feeling it for the first time today. But anyway, it's the altitude. It's the altitude, yeah, that's right, we're in a valley. But as part of our plan to make hopefully the policies a little more readable and to follow a more again easy to follow, easy to read format, you'll note that I broke up the policy, added the background piece, which was just a rewording or came from the original policy, and then just clarified the rules by following the numbering process. So I separated out superintendent of schools, the secretary treasurer, and other staff. And one of the edits that I made to sort of reference back to earlier policies in the past, because I noticed there was some tweaks in 2021, when it was 2019 was the first one, was just the clarity around my responsibility to, the superintendent of school responsibility to report directly to the board, and that the secretary treasurer reports to me, but that of course in 2.1 that the Board of Education superintendent is jointly responsible for the hiring and the job description. And that was a change that was in 2021 about the board having joint supervision and support roles. But I think as spoken about before, and as we hear from again in the BCSTA handbook and whatnot, that really I report to you. Yeah, and I'm your one employee and the rest is delegated through me. So I just wanted to make that clear because it didn't seem clear to me in the earlier version. And I think that's basically the tweaks that I made, and then just the clarity under other staff with the responsibility of superintendent to hire all other staff. And yeah, ensure that piece around the performance reviews are in place. And I want to thank Celeste before I turn it over to trustee comments, because Celeste sends ahead of time her thoughts on some of the tweaks, and I would like us to share those because I think they all make sense to me. If you don't mind going first.
I think Lisa might have had her hand up first. If you want to go ahead, Lisa.
Celeste, you probably have the same point that I have in the first sentence and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
Already done. Yeah.
much of it was just editorial stuff, and I don't know about the capitalizing of chief educational officer. Like, it's whatever. I leave that to your discretion. The only comment of substance, I think, is for 2.2, for you to rightfully be responsible for the performance evaluation. But if we can have it written into policy that the results are reported to the board for the secretary treasurer, just because of the importance of that role. I completely understand that, the reason behind the change in the structure with the secretary treasurer not reporting directly to the board, but just to keep us a bit more in the loop on the performance evaluation for that key employee. I have a couple more comments, but I'll perhaps shut up because people may want to comment on that before we move forward.
Yep, thank you.
So is that the general caucus that you report the results to the board?
It's not, in my opinion, and from what I gathered from just reviewing other policies in the districts, it's not practice to share evaluation results unless there is a concern. And you're looking at, right, possible change or termination or things like that.
Because we don't receive results from my recollection.
We've lost Rachel.
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Resulted in
Not-
a
Rebecca, I meant, sorry.
unfavorable, what do you call it, evaluation. But other than that, we're not yet generally seeing the details because they report to you.
Right.
It's your job. And what's crossed off here from the 2.1, it says in a timely manner, but it's completed. So we get those reports back when you say, okay, I have completed evaluations on, the secretary treasurer, not that we get the input or the feedback from it.
Mhm.
Lisa, you had something as well?
Yeah, when I was looking through the School Act, the section 23, it says a board must appoint a secretary treasurer. So I'm just wondering, I noticed that, we say that the duties outlined in the School Act, but are we not the board? Or is Chris the board in this situation? Like, I'm just trying to grapple my head around that change. The only other thing I had is probably Celeste's thing at the top. The Board of Education School District number 48 be changed to Sea to Sky School District. But yeah, the School Act says that this is a position appointed by the board. So
Do you want to respond or should we continue first?
If it's related to that statement, then I think I'm happy to hear from others before I respond. If it's a different question or statement.
Okay, then why don't we start by responding to the comment about
The board appointing.
no, the voting back on the evaluation. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm on the same.
Oh,
I think my comment would be along those lines.
okay.
Okay, so, I think given that the number one responsibility of the board is the budget. I'm in agreement with Celeste, that I think that, sharing especially the evaluation, right, whatever the way Celeste worded it, where Chris performs it, but then it comes back to us. I think given the role of the secretary treasurer is different because it's not an educational board. It's an administrative, it's a budget, and which is what we're responsible for. So if it was this assistant superintendent or the director of instruction, I would agree. But in this case, I think we need to be able to, like, I kind of know why this was written the way it was written. Because the structure changed several years ago between the superintendent and the secretary treasurer, which is why it was written the way it was. Because the roles were parallel. Then it changed and now it became that Chris is our only employee and Danielle is actually an employee of Chris. But I do think that also what Lisa said, that, we are the board. And I think that in this role, we should be more informed than what the way it's laid out.
Okay, thank you. You want to respond?
Yep. Yep, so I understand where you're coming from. However, where it says the board, if you follow the school act and the BCSTA resources they provide in terms of the rules and the functioning, the delegation, the board also delegates all authority to the superintendent to operate the school and to have the reports from all the other staff. So that's where that comes from. So I just clarify, there's lots of parts in the school act where it says the board, but the board is not doing the day-to-day work. That's as you know, that's operational. By board, they mean through the delegation of authority. So it's that with delegation of authority that puts it on the superintendent, right? But the joint hiring, of course, the board has to be, we have to be in agreement that we've got a great person as our secretary treasurer. I have no issue with that. But in terms of delegated authority, that has been the change in the past, where it used to be a dual report, where it was as most of you know, the secretary treasurer and the superintendent being hierarchy co-equal, but that's not the case anymore. I think it might be in one or two districts, but many districts like ours, we've moved on from that from the past. So I'd want to maintain that. The piece about the supervision, like the evaluation, I would just ask for second thought about that, because I think, again, I'm not sure. I think that if it's a negative performance appraisal, or there's concerns and I need board support for X, Y, and Z, then I think that makes sense, because then I develop a support plan for the treasurer, share that with the board, and we go from there. But I don't know that that's something we've done in the past, and it feels like I don't want to say an overreach, because that's the wrong word. I just wonder what the rationale is for
Well, I
reception of the report.
see both Celeste and Lisa have their hands up, and then April was after that.
Okay.
And Cynthia. Sorry, it's really hard because
I know.
it's not showing up on the screen here, so I have to look up there, and then I'm seeing.
see you besides, that's why I just said, that's okay, I'll be fine.
Okay, so I don't know in which order. Like I said, it's challenging with the Zoom. So Celeste, you take it away.
Lisa was first. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, you were.
Okay. Fine. I'll just keep us moving along.
Yeah.
So I think that the intent of adding that suggestion, Chris, was just more, and it wasn't meant to be like a laborious or lengthy report, but I think just in the interest of transparency and keeping the board informed because of the importance of that key position, that's kind of just so that we are ensuring that we're in the know about what's going on, whether it's great or whether it's medium or whether it's concerning. So that's all that I was suggesting there. Okay, I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to speak to supporting it as well for just that reason. Like, there's a lot within the school act that this position is responsible for, and the budget, like April said, this is our 100% responsibility, right? Like ensuring we get this budget right. And that is, in this situation, Danielle's amazing role, right? Like she's the one that brings it at this present moment in time. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. But in order to actually understand the transparencies of what's going on, I would like to see some form of report back to the board on this particular position for sure.
Okay, thank you. April?
Yeah, I just wanted, I wasn't on the board when the change was made. Is this on? Can you hear me? Is it going?
Yeah, you're good.
But I suspect that this language was written when those roles became something different and they weren't parallel. There must have been a reason why, when that when it was changed, where the superintendent was the CEO and the secretary treasurer was now not in a parallel position, this was the language that was put in. And there must have been a reason for that. And I think for the reason that we've all been saying that the secretary treasurer is a key position. It's not an educational position, it is a financial position, which is what the board is responsible.
And if I recall, so I suspect it would have been in the 2014 revision.
Yeah.
And I was on the board at the time, and I think in the past, it was the board's responsibility to make sure the superintendent and the ST were evaluated. But because of the change in hierarchy, it became the job of the superintendent to evaluate the ST.
Yeah, but then it said shall report jointly to the Board of Education and the superintendent of schools. Like the board was still in there until right now when it got rolled out.
Yeah, so it's a, let's go ahead. Chris.
So what I understand, and I'm going to be respectful of past employees, is that the 2014 was the change. 2019 was just language amendment. 2021 was because of a performance concern of a previous assistant superintendent. And then I was not part of that conversation, but I understand there was a
Not assistance.
I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
super, oh my gosh, sorry, this is public.
I would caution right now, this is a public meeting.
Oh, that's right, okay. Yeah.
So if we're getting into
So,
staffing
correct.
issues.
Thank you for
then
that.
we need to-
Yes, thank you. I will
Okay,
say there was reason made and I can follow up later on that. Thank you.
so it was
Appreciate
reactionary,
that from the chair.
right?
But I just would just reiterate that the delegation of authority that does include supervision. So while I would absolutely, inform the board of concerns, of course, that would be my duty and responsibility as I would at most of the positions that come up from time to time. The requirement to just provide the HR that's in the HR file, the document to the board, I'm not sure.
I don't think, and I could be wrong, and Cynthia, I know you're up next, but I don't think that that's the ask. What I'm picking up on now, because that's what I originally read it as when Celeste proposed this change, is that they want the desire to have more in-depth report back. But I think to me, it's yes, I've completed it. There's, it was an excellent or, mediocre, or there are some concerns, which I think you do anyway.
Yes,
You would report back when you're complete, or just say, I've done it. You usually say, I've completed this,
Yeah.
the evaluation,
and that's at the end of the
And-
school year, like we go through
who was on the list for that year, and then you say, no concerns, no
That's right.
concerns. So I don't know if the ask is for something more in depth, which I don't think is our role unless we have to make a decision for termination or something like that. Cynthia,
I'm really curious if it was left in there that it said jointly to the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools as like a method of a check and balance, because right now the relationship between you and Danielle, the superintendent and secretary treasurer, is great. It's very professional. There's nothing being hidden. Everything is really fantastic, but there might become a time where maybe the district is in a situation that is difficult and challenging, and this might be the mechanism by which any sort of colluding between maybe someone who's not as ethical and someone else who is worried about a situation could like team up together and do something that's not totally above board. And then it gets passed down to the board. They're not necessarily able to see what's happening because there's unethical behavior happening. Not that I'm saying that's happening here, but this is what you want to protect against. And then it falls to the board, and then the board passes the budget, and then the whole board is fired. But they didn't have an ability to see what was happening prior.
Thank you.
I think it's just protection from unethical behavior. Not that that's happening now, like there's total trust, and I wouldn't say anything against the jobs that both of you are doing ever. It's fantastic, but not everyone is as ethical as the both of you are all the time. So is that just the protection or mechanism, or is there something else in place that provides that protection?
I don't, yeah, I would respond that I don't believe that's the intent. I think again, it's in that governance model that you have again, and I'm happy to, come back to this and share districts that are even clearer about, the sole employee, the full the delegation of authority. They don't even mention the secretary treasurer in the senior management piece, because it's you've hired a CEO to be the chief executive officer of the district, and it's that word delegation. It's to say we delegate the authority to you, and you either have trust in that person or you don't. I know that's not what anybody's saying on the table, which I appreciate, but I think it's just to keep it clean. To your point, muddying the waters, because you don't want it read as if it's joint, then, right, you don't know who is the actual person that the board needs to be holding to account.
Yeah, like.
And again, I have no issue with those.
It makes complete sense. For sure. And that's how we do it. Like you see how that should be the way it should happen, but where's the protection in case you do have that happen?
Well, the law, the school act, my responsibility is to ensure that when we have the audit each year and we have to report any knowledge we have of fraud to the auditors, like they do all those pieces on our behalf.
Actually,
Those are the sections.
Yeah, and the audit, that makes good sense. Okay.
Hey, Celeste, your hand's still up?
Yeah, I never took it down, but I left it up on purpose because I had something else I wanted to say. I just wanted to speak to Lisa's concern about what we're doing maybe not being in line with what it says in the School Act. So I think that we are, because the policy states that the Board of Education and the superintendent shall jointly be responsible for the hiring of the secretary treasurer. I think that that is in line with what is written in the School Act because the board is involved. It just simply empowers this superintendent to participate in that process. It doesn't negate anything that is written in the School Act. And just to respond briefly to Cynthia, I think the audit is one way that we have protections. I think that there's probably whistleblower protection written into policy. I may be wrong about that, but yeah, Danielle's nodding. So there are ways for people to report problems. But I think we need to be careful in debating these kind of things. And Chris, I hear your concerns, but hearing too much from the superintendent on this matter, I think the board needs to be careful about debating this as a board and coming to a decision as a board, because we're asking our employee to report to us on a matter that I'm arguing is important, but just to make sure there might be an interest, like it's difficult to have that employee's voice in the debate about whether or not we choose to make this change to the policy about the results of the performance evaluation of the secretary treasurer being reported to the board. I think that in the interest of transparency, I don't want to see necessarily the piece of paper, but I don't want to know that there are problems only at the point of termination of someone in that key position. I want to be in the know well before that because of the level of responsibility that we have. So I will leave it at that. And I hope that we can have debate, a motion, and vote on this, and just be mindful of staff not entering into the debate too much. Sorry, Chris. But this is important work that the board has to do as a board.
Yeah, I will respond only that, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I guess I could have prefaced it, trying to be objective as possible. In my role as superintendent is to give you the advice to the best of my knowledge on policy, whether it involves me directly or not. So objectively, but I appreciate your comments, Les, but I will say I'm doing my best to provide objective information and advice that isn't necessarily about me per se, but just about the role. And I don't believe I said anything about, I thought I did say it would be a superintendent responsibility to share concerns, that to your point, to the chair's point, if there was a performance appraisal where there were some concerns, so that you wouldn't be blindsided if there were something significant. So I actually am agreeing with you, Celeste, and I think what you're getting at. But I just want to respectfully say that unless you, and again, I'm happy to leave if you would like me to, but I will always do my best to provide advice from an objective point of view in the role that I have.
And Melissa, I know your hand was up. I'm just gonna just make a statement that in the past, and not necessarily with the secretary treasurer, but even with some direct reports, if there were some concerning issues that came up, it was reported to us and with a plan on how to address whatever that may look like. So that is occurring, and I just want to acknowledge that. Melissa? I was just going to say, could we add where it says the superintendent will ensure that the performance evaluations completed in a timely manner and a summary presented to the board. And I was also going to say we have the audit. I think that's an excellent suggestion. So any other comments on this policy?
I had one more, Rebecca, if I may.
Yep.
My question was for Danielle about if it would be helpful to have a timely manner defined, like would it provide some benefit to you as a person who has to sit in that position to know that you are going to, because a timely manner like that could be interpreted, is 5 years timely? Like how, do you want to know that you're going to receive an evaluation within 3 years or something like that, just to give you the opportunity to speak on this as the person that's presently serving in the position for the benefit of people that may do it in the future, right?
I don't think it's necessary to have it in here because I'm just part of the regular exec review schedule. So I get a review within the first 2 years and then 1 every 5 years after that, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I actually feel like we've had a really good discussion and I'm happy to make the motion to approve the policy, maybe with the addition that was suggested for 2.2 and a summary presented to the board as the last bit of language to 2.2.
Are she able to draft that?
And thank you for answering my questions today and just making sure that actors are accountable because you never know what happens.
So we'll just give Archie a second to draft the motion that Cynthia is proposing.
Yeah.
I trust Cynthia. Well, Cynthia is making the motion, so.
Yeah, just
She's
take a
making the motion. Should say, and a summary presented to the board. Wouldn't that go into the actual policy, the summary presented? Not in the motion.
Oh, yeah, it should, yeah, it needs to be,
It doesn't go into the motion.
yeah, you're right.
And the summary goes into the policy. Under
Oh.
2.2.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was reading it as it was.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Okay. Go when you are. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. Thank you. Okay, that the policy committee recommends the Board of Education approves policy 401, senior management of district organization with changes as discussed in section 2.
Thank you. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Melissa. Any discussion?
Yes, if I may, should we not also put in housekeeping? And housekeeping changes as discussed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Friendly amendment.
A friendly amendment.
Mhm.
Cynthia and Melissa, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. Any other discussion? Okay, any objections? Abstentions? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you, guys. So that brings us to our policy 109, environmental sustainability.
So if folks recall, we did put this out to impact, but to ensure that we did the proper amount of days. We weren't there at the last board meeting. We launched this in January, so we're back today. I think I'll open by just thanking any public listening, because we did get some feedback. We got about 30 separate comments, which I think was great. I'm really impressed that we had some engagement on the issue. I want to thank the public for some really thoughtful suggestions. I will say there were a lot of pieces, which again, I'm happy to share as an attachment later or just to the board, that were more operational in nature in terms of specific things about where recycling bins should go versus where they currently are at certain sites. That said, I will say what I try to again incorporate into the revised version is some statements, comments, suggestions about being clearer on the commitment to Indigenous knowledge and collaboration. And so I hope I captured that both in the opening background statement and throughout the document. I thought that was very important. I want to thank our educators who provided some input on just ensuring that, you know, we had the word support for the educators in there, because it did read before that, you know, teachers would incorporate these values into lessons, which of course we would like, but let's ensure we have the word support in there, because of course that means, okay, are we going to have opportunities for professional learning? Will there be resources and all those things to ensure that while many of these values again are found in the curriculum, just that assurance for our educators that we will always, you know, continue to support them in the resources they need and opportunities, professional learning as they come up, so that they can do a great job on these very important topics. So what else? I think those were the main changes made. I'm sure there's some other housekeeping things we can share. But I also will say that we wanted to ensure that clarity around this being, and the 100 series sort of a foundational policy that we believe in and want to support. But some folks did ask for, can you put in specific targets around, CO2 reduction and other things. And I will point out that in the strategic energy management plan, the SEMP as it's called, down below in 1.4.1, that does have targets in it that's reported out the year before, as does climate change accountability report that we do every year. So I hope there's clarity around that, and that I think we wouldn't necessarily want to go anywhere beyond that, because I don't know that we'd be able to meet all of those, specific targets outside of what we have in these documents, because I think it would just put a lot of undue pressure and time on the system to be able to be as maybe finite as people would like. So we try for more broader statements, and to assure the board and the public that the Ministry of Education, and when we do get approvals for playgrounds or for extensions to buildings or roof repair, HVAC upgrades, etc., that there are clear industry standards around energy and sustainability, triple pane windows, etc., that are part of what are we required to do by law. So, the purpose of this policy is to just buttress, a foundational belief in environmental sustainability without taking the job of the legislation or the powers that be around energy sustainability, and that we're still beholden to those requirements as well.
Okay, Lisa, I see your hands up.
Yep. So a couple of questions on this one, Chris, if I may, and feel free to stop me where we need to. For this one, we're specifying the Board of Education. So is this the Board of Education rather than the district? That's question number one. Question number two relates to 1.11. Looking at some of the recycling challenges within some of the municipalities versus the others. Some schools have moved to a pack in and pack out, but then the breakfast programs are maybe not as repurposeful in some occasions. Also, are we looking to put any mileage, carpooling, Zoom attributes into this? When I click the link for 1.4.1 for climate change accountability, it told me that there was a June 2024 final report to be posted, but I was unable to locate that. And I wasn't sure how 2.5 under 2, policy 805 related to the environmental sustainability. That was it.
Oh. That's a good question. I think 0805, I think that has to, no, I'm going to double check that one. I think that might have to do with the political statement. So while we're going to be committed to, striving to support sustainability, we wouldn't put up a Green Party person's name during election time, because we're not able to, we wouldn't do that as a nonpartisan group. So we don't put political parties signs up. We invite everybody in, all parties in, to chat with kids and whatnot, but we wouldn't, even though some may argue that the Green Party may be the most environmental progressive group, we wouldn't therefore say, oh, you can put your signs up, but the Conservative Party or the NDP or the Liberals, anybody can't, or you can come to the school to do a presentation, but you can't. So I think that's why that's there. Happy to remove it if it doesn't make sense for the public. I think that's a really good point. The reports, They do refer to the previous year, so the June, my understanding from Ian, because I did check in with this, is the June 2024 report will be published in June of 2025. So it's always a year behind.
We may
That
want to
makes-
reflect that on the actual one that's there.
It's not, oh, it should be June 2023, but I'll click on it and make sure it's the right
Yeah.
there. It says 1.4.1.1 online links to 2.4.1 for the SEMP and the CCAR will be updated as available and reflect the previous years. But I can put more clarity into that and make sure that's clear. And then the last thing, which is the first thing you mentioned about the board. If you would rather, I think it's still the Board of Education, because again, it's that delegated authority through the district. But if you under policy would prefer the board committed to say the district, I think that's absolutely fine. But I'd keep the Board of Education up in the background. Because that's how we sometimes differentiate between operational policies at the district level and board policies.
Well, we have,
There's mud.
so the board policies, the ones that we're looking at today, say the Board of Education, there's one there that's operational, it says operational policy, and that one says the district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is there and it's clear,
Yeah.
it's defined already.
Okay. The only other two that you missed were the pack in, pack out, and mileage. Should we not?
Yeah, so the commitment, it's minimizing resource use and reducing waste generation. So it's the promotion of, so I know it's, and again, apologies to any public who want more, strong statements. But again, if we say, zero waste, or I think that's not something we're able to do at this time.
Yeah.
So the minimizing of the way, and I absolutely, it is context specific and site specific. So if it's helpful to add as housekeeping, as per site specific availability or some wording, I'm happy to do that for clarity. And then for carpooling, I think we're getting maybe into
minutia, so disregard. Chris. Totally good.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And got it. All good. Thank
high
you.
level. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Are we at the point where we are ready to make a motion? Reminder, we have meeting starting in 10 minutes.
I make the motion, the policy committee recommend the Board of Education approves policy 109, environmental sustainability with changes and HPP as discussed.
Second.
Oh, adopt, sorry,
No.
I'm reading it from.
Correct.
I mentioned something.
Just trying to make it as I go along.
I was impressed with that, Cynthia.
Did the public catch that? It's because it's a new policy.
That's right.
It's the term adoption is needed. Yeah.
So without the changes.
But the policy committee adopt the Board of Education policy 109, environmental sustainability with housekeeping changes.
There's no housekeeping.
There was one from Celeste that I have, so I'm happy to, it's wording, it's housekeeping. And the site, the part I'm gonna change to. Yeah. Happy to do that. Thank you, Lisa.
Yep. Thanks.
We got that as seconder for that. Thank you,
Perfect.
Melissa. Any debate? Any further discussion? Okay, any objections? Abstentions? Yeah, it's carried. Thank you. So that brings us to our operational policy 401.8, District Occupational Health and Safety Committee. So
Yeah, I know.
Lisa's name's there, but
So I wondered, just from staff, because I didn't prepare anything except to fix the leak into the manifold. That's been done. I know you had some either questions or you wanted to have discussion or an ed session. I'm just curious what your questions are.
So I was kind of hoping to, through the board, of course, but I was kind of hoping to get a review of these two, maybe an ed plan, just so that there's been some changes with occupational health and safety as in regard to reporting out. Our policies are a little bit reduced from what some of the procedures are, and I just want to make sure that we are in 100% compliance. All our staff are protected from violence in the workplace, and they know what they should be doing with their occupational health and safety, and potentially having an in-camera session so that the board can be reported out, or information accessible from the Joint Occupational Health and Safety, all these kinds of things. It's so important. The BCSTA and CUPE just went to the province a couple of weeks ago to advocate for further protections for violence in the workplace and occupational and health and safety needs. So I think it would be prudent for us to really have a good look at it, make sure that our workers are well protected, and therefore the students are well protected. So I just wanted to highlight them both, if you don't mind.
No, thank you for that. My suggestion is for the board to consider at an upcoming planning meeting about an ed session, for example, because I think to your point that, yeah, there's a ton of stuff. There's also in the staff portal a whole separate OH&S section where, to your point, all those updated things are. We haven't updated this operational policy because it's operational for a while. So I noted myself, for example, that while staff do know, because we've transferred that to them, the notion that all staff have the ability to refuse unsafe work. And that was from 2016. While we don't have that in that operational policy, it is within our OH&S portal for staff, and it is shared with all. I don't know, April's not in your head because in your previous position, you would have known about that, of course. So yeah, happy to, just show the board where all that information is for staff. And assure them that, we obviously follow all work safe procedures. We're beholden by law to do so. And we have a robust OH&S joint committee, et cetera. So maybe my suggestion would be at a further time, that may be something you want to put forward as an ed session. But I think it's longer than just an in camera to really.
Also part of that is just ensuring that the administrators, that the staff feel they're not being dismissed, right? Like the staff really need to know that it's okay to report these things, and that their mental health is important and their well-being in the workplace is important. And the work that they do is instrumental in the work that they do with our students. So we need the whole, the little sheet just needs to be clear, succinct. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. And everybody's on the same page, and where to go when the page doesn't work. So,
sure. I can share with you what we share with the staff. That's far beyond just what's there, because that's just a operational overview. But yes, and again, be assured, and actually your board chair signs off on a number of things about workplace and work safety. From non-sexist environment that we sign up every year, safety from harassment and violence. We actually sign that off each year with all the unions, and the unions share out all that information to members. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. We can certainly dive deep in mid session if that's the will of the board.
Just a reminder, we have 4 minutes before our next meeting starts and we still need to
Okay.
log in. So we know what we're doing with that now. We're good?
Lisa, does that suffice at this
How
point?
soon do we get an ed session? How soon do we get revision? Are we looking to have some revisions? Like, how does that work?
Well, I'll quickly share that again, we'll provide the overview. It's operational. What as the board, you want to ensure that your policies that are above that are providing the direction to staff. And so if you're not feeling that's the case after we share out, then we're happy to oblige.
Okay. And what about, is that the same with the,
Yeah, that was for
Well-
both of those policies.
okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, seeing none, we do not have any action items. Do we have any questions of clarification from the public? Well, with that, then we have completed the business of this agenda and we are adjourned at 2:13. We have 2 minutes to log out and log in.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you in 2.